Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest Cyber Chameleon video chat. In today's chat, we're going to talk about all the sort of current and upcoming things in the Boy George and Culture Club universe. We'll be covering things like George's recent appearance at the Eurovision Song Contest. There's an exhibition in Ireland at the moment called Chameleon of Style, which has a few outfits and memorabilia pieces from George's collection, which is later going to be auctioned off this year. We are going to be covering the Boy George and Culture Club documentary, which came out last year to things like film festivals and the odd TV network or streaming network around the world, but is getting a wider release next month in the US. And we'll be talking about a very special issue of Classic Pop magazine, which is coming out next month. And finally, just talking about things that are coming up for Boy George and Culture Club later on this year. Joining me today, of course, which you can sort of see in this chat window, is David Lindsay once more. Good morning, David. Well, good morning, and it's good afternoon to you as well.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day. And hi, everybody. I'm kind of excited about this episode because we do have plenty of news to talk about. Not going to be doing a lot of rehashing of history, so I think we should get started to tell everybody about what's going on and coming up.
So, first off, we are talking about George's appearance in the very recent Eurovision Song Contest for this year.
Mhm.
David, I mean, for you, Eurovision isn't necessarily a big thing. So, what is
Oh
your
no.
experience with Eurovision?
I think that the typical American is clueless when it comes to Eurovision. It is really not a thing here. It has only in the last maybe 5 years or so even been available to watch on television. And I'm not even sure if it still is. I know I never saw anything about it this year on American broadcasts. I think most people probably know it as how ABBA got started, and beyond that, that's it. They don't get the importance of it. I do, as a fan of a lot of European artists. I understand the significance of it, and it's almost like what our Super Bowl is to most Americans is to Europeans. It's what everyone watches and everyone roots for their own, who they choose to win, and it's a big moment. But I don't think it translates over here at all. Um, George's song. I say George's song, even though it's not his song. He participated in the song, but it really is it Senhit? Is that the way it's pronounced?
I think it's Senate,
Um,
yeah.
okay. Um, it really is her song that he contributes to, but um, I don't think it will ever air here. I don't think anyone will ever hear it here unless George plays it in concert or something happens and it becomes a huge hit by accident, which I don't see happening. And it's really I don't have anything against the song. The song itself is actually pretty good for what it is, but it's not. It would have been exactly what it is whether George performed on it or not. He provides a little clout, maybe a little recognition, and gets it promoted somewhat. But as far artistically speaking, I don't think he really adds anything to the song that wasn't already there. He just kind of made it a little more fabulous.
You know what? To me, it feels like it's just ticking off a bucket list. You know,
Hmm.
Boy George
Hmm.
got to Eurovision, as the headline might go. And I guess a lot of the attention for the song was more about George's appearance in the song than the song itself.
True, which is kind of sad because it is a small part.
It's a very small part. It's, what, two lines repeated a couple of times and you're done.
Yeah.
My
There's no small parts. There's only small songs.
well, it's a small song too. Um, as most Eurovision things are. I mean, with Eurovision, I think the rule is that the songs need to be 3 minutes or less or thereabouts.
Hmm.
I can't
And
remember the
what this
rules.
is like 2:55 or something. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I
it's
can't
definitely
remember
less
the
than
rules
three.
exactly, but I think 3 minutes is the limit for each of the songs. For me, my dad was Slovenian. So Slovenia and, before Slovenia separated from it, Yugoslavia was in most Eurovision Song Contests. So I watched a lot of that growing up. And then
Mhm.
in, later years, friends having Eurovision parties and all of that sort of stuff. It's quite a big deal for Australia considering we're a bit of a way from Europe. But our the network that screens it here, which is called SBS, is our sort of multicultural channel, and they've always been a big supporter of Eurovision
Mhm.
throughout, and have televised it throughout. So we've seen it every year pretty much since I think SBS gained prominence in the early 80s. Um,
That's very
and
good.
so then 10 years ago, they invited Australia to do a performance. And so because SBS is participating in Eurovision each year, they've given an open invitation for pretty much every year since. So that's how Australia, even though we're at the other end of the world and not really in Europe, gets to be in Eurovision, which is predominantly
Mhm.
a European
Well,
contest.
your country's European heritage is hard to deny,
Yeah.
and same for ours. But I don't think there's been an American contestant ever. Have there? Do you know of any, or a Canadian even for that matter?
Well, I mean, if we're talking Canadian, Celine Dion performed for, I think it was Sweden or Switzerland or
Oh,
one
okay.
of those back in the late 80s. You know, and that leads to how did George end up being in San Marino for this year's song contest? I think people are allowed to participate for other countries.
Hmm.
I mean, as far as Australians being in Eurovision, we've had Olivia Newton-John, we've had Gina G perform for the UK one year. But we've had bits and pieces where either Australians have written or performed in Eurovision for other countries long before Australia was involved in it directly. I enjoyed seeing the novelty, I guess, of George being in Eurovision.
Yeah.
I mean, San Marino is a country. I mean, you mentioned the word clout earlier. San Marino is a country which generally doesn't have a great track record or clout in the Eurovision Song Contest. It's a very small territory. So there was no, at no point was I expecting Superstar, the duet with George and Senhit, to, win the final or anything. But I thought just because of the fabulousness of George being at Eurovision, that would have been enough to have got it into the final. But sadly, it only got as far as the first semi.
Which is, I mean, knowing what I know now from what you just said about the history, I think that's not anything to be ashamed of. Um,
No.
it, it made the album, which to me says a lot about what the organizers expected. This album was not put together and pressed this week. That was ready to go before the finals,
Yeah.
certainly. So the fact that that song made it onto the record means that everyone was supporting, or enough people were supporting it to warrant that, and they hoped that that would help sell, and it did, I think.
Well, that and each sort of country or territory that participates in Eurovision go through their own sort of country song contest or selection process, and that won the sort of San Marino vote to represent it in Eurovision. So
Mhm.
there was a whole territory that was behind that song making it.
Was his involvement in that song? How long ago was that first announced? Was it before any of these preparations were being done, or was he kind of added like midstream?
George's cameo in the song wasn't necessarily credited in the beginning, but it was there. I think
Okay.
it was submitted to, I guess, the San Marino Song Contest or whatever, judging process that song went through. I think when it was submitted just as a Senate song without George. I mean, I watched the San Marino final, and George is only there via sort of like a video clip, the video
Right.
backdrop, because Culture Club were touring the US at the time, and so George couldn't be in two places at once.
I wonder if that would have had any kind of impact on how it moved through the competition if he had been advertised better.
I think it would have helped.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, Eurovision this year had the rule that if your country is not performing in that semi final, you couldn't vote for it.
Hmm.
So the UK was in the second semi final, and so was Australia. So there's two big territories that George is very well known in that we couldn't actually even vote for him.
Right.
So I don't think that would have helped it much, getting through semi final one either.
Hmm.
And then there's a video clip. Your thoughts, David? Hey, we saw that eye roll.
Yeah, well, I have thoughts. I do have thoughts.
Yeah.
I am not a big fan of AI. I think it has its place, and I'm actually guilty of using it myself to enhance certain photos. I like to, remove glare, do the kinds of things that are difficult to do manually myself in photo editing. But I don't really use it for anything creative. And I think that's where I draw the line. When it becomes the source of the creativity and the way the creativity is presented to the public, I feel like it's almost a cheat. I don't like how robotic they look in the video.
Oh,
And I do think,
that shot of George walking down the catwalk is the ultimate in robotic. It's like he's sort of moving like this.
yeah,
Um, and I'm like, why?
I think, I mean, and far be it from me to tell George what to do, and I don't know how much George had to do with this video, but if they had used like filmed clips from the rehearsals and from all the press meetings and all of that, and kind of lead up to, and even some footage from the competition itself, and then lead up to having the AI segment be like the finale to the video, I think that would have been a fun little progression, and it would have justified the use of AI in a creative manner, because it's like, okay, here is what they're looking forward to happening, if in the song, and it would have been a great way to kind of, like I said, add to the fabulousness of when George's lines come in. But as the whole thing being AI, I almost feel like it's a cop out and an insult.
I I kind of agree on most of those points, and I guess even with what the direction of the video clip could have taken. I mean, George and Senhit having a duet that made Eurovision is a big deal. I would have
Hmm.
loved to have seen a clip which went through that sort of process, whether it was Senhit and the dancers rehearsing and then performing it for the first time without George or whatever, and then
Hmm.
sort of it building up to maybe when George popped out in the semi-final performance, that could have been where they showed that last minute of the Eurovision performance, and
Right.
everything else be the sort of build up to that, the promotion, the rehearsals, getting the makeup, the costumes on, and then
Hmm.
that being the show moment of like, look, here we are as superstars, essentially. So, I mean, with the AI sort of directive of the video clip, I mean, it's not too different, I guess, to back in the day where we may have had, like, say, an animated clip
Hmm.
or a montage clip of some sort, but it takes away a bit of the personality when the whole clip is just this computer generated footage.
Yeah, animation takes a long time, and it takes a lot of creativity and several people. And the AI kind of replaced all of those jobs. And Lord knows how many, gallons and gallons of water were destroyed to make that video.
An eco point of view.
Yes, thank you. It's a little frightening to think about, but um, it has its place, and I think that it just kind of overreached where it should have been in this. And who knows, maybe they didn't have time to do a video. Maybe that's like, we need a video yesterday, and it's like, okay, AI to the rescue.
I mean, they did have a video before the AI one where I think it was just Senate performing, which they
Hmm.
sort of submitted or released as we were going into Eurovision proceedings. So I guess an
Hmm.
update was necessary to include George and that. And I would guess, like you would say with timing, I mean, they put it out on the day of the Eurovision Grand Final that if San Marino, went up from the semi-final to the grand final, they probably wouldn't have had that time to edit and finish the clip in the
Right.
couple of days necessary between the semi-final and the final to put a performance clip together. Overall, I think it was a fun experience seeing George in Eurovision.
Absolutely. And I hope that if he ever gets the chance again, he'll do better, because I think he deserves it. Obviously, as a fan, I would say that, but I
Yeah.
also feel like he is so iconic, and such a recognizable figure in Europe in general.
Overall, I think Eurovision was a positive experience for George, and
I agree.
I think that's the takeaway we need to take from that one.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's easy for us to say I wish, or I could have, or I want to, but what it was, for what it was, it was great, and I'm happy that they got as far as they did with it, and I hope that they're happy too.
So moving on to our next wonderful topic, and earlier this month in Kildare, Ireland,
Hmm.
the Chameleon of Style exhibition premiered. And that was a series of George's outfits and memorabilia on exhibition, which it still is till the end of May. So if you're seeing
Hmm.
this in the May timeframe, you can still get there if you want.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
but
sure you can find a flight really cheap in a week.
yeah, but if you can't, I mean, we're going to show a few photos as we're talking about this so you can get an idea of
Hmm.
what was there. And these pieces are on exhibition in the lead up to an auction later this year through Julien's in Beverly Hills,
Hmm.
where many of the outfits are going that you would have seen in the exhibition are going to be in there along with other things. And part of the proceeds are going to the Music Cares charity. And
Hmm.
I guess George would rightfully pocket the rest because they're his outfits and his memorabilia. We're just going to really quickly take you through the exhibition through, I guess, our eyes and the photos that have been given to us by friends. Thank you very
Hmm.
much, Glenn and Tom and Jason, for those. I guess the one that stands out as being the most iconic for me is the pink Color by Numbers outfit,
Hmm.
which George wore on the cover of Color by Numbers and in TV appearances around that, and sort of some of the more iconic Culture Club photo shoots. The one
Hmm.
that comes to mind, David, is the one where George is sitting on the stool and the others are in the sort of baseball gear or the baseball gear or football gear. Can't remember now.
I believe it's
They've always
baseball.
got a
Yeah.
baseball bat, so I think it's
Right.
baseball, right? Where they're sort of around him in baseball gear, and you've got the Union Jack and the US flag
Hmm.
sort of draped behind them.
And you bring up a really good point. A lot of times these celebrity auctions tend to go, um, there's one or two things donated, and you don't really recognize what it's from. It's like, oh, here's a little black dress that looks like every other little black dress, or here's a pair of shoes that were hardly ever seen. These are iconic outfits, and I would say when I first saw the first sweep of the video, there was only one outfit that I really didn't quite recognize. Everything else is like, oh, that's from this and that's from that. And I don't think that's because I'm some kind of crazy obsessive fan. I am, but the the
Thank you.
outfits are that recognizable. The war song video outfit, and also from the David Letterman show in '84, where he's got the Japanese emperor inspired outfit,
The cape
is
and the headdress.
exactly. That's one of them. And who, I mean, short of getting the Hasidic Jewish hat and braids, I don't think you could find anything more iconic and more recognizable as belonging to Boy George, um, than something like that. And the pink outfit, like you described, and some of the others. So
Yeah,
I think this is going to be a great thing for the charity. And
yeah,
it's also, I think it's a good thing for George because he holds on to things. Obviously, he doesn't get rid of very much at all. So it might be time to clear out the closets a little bit and uh, freshen up his selections.
yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have seen these outfits sort of get donated to, I guess, a museum of some sort where it could be exhibited in full and probably be a touring exhibition around the
Hmm.
world. But from my understanding is that even though George has kept a lot, he hasn't kept everything.
Uh-huh.
Like I saw in some of the press for this exhibition that George was saying, I donated a lot of things, I've thrown out a lot of things without ever thinking that any of them were iconic.
Hmm.
So he hasn't necessarily, I like using this term, curated his legacy by holding on to all the iconic pieces for
Right.
something that could be an exhibition. Like, say, before David Bowie passed, there was a wonderful exhibition here that came to Melbourne where most of David's lyric sheets, iconic outfits, there were things like the computer that he used in the 90s. He invented a software program to generate random lyrics for him.
Hmm. Speaking of
Sort of,
AI,
well, this is AI before it was AI,
right.
where it would print, like, from what I remember of it, it would print out pages of random words and phrases, which he would
Hmm.
then sort of earmark the ones that he liked and then write a song around that, which, I thought was genius. But unfortunately, George didn't architect his career in the same sort of way. So a lot of his iconic outfits, even though there's quite a few in this exhibition, a lot of the iconic ones have been donated to various charities over the years,
Mhm.
to various organizations over the years. Like when I was in Liverpool at, I think it was called the Sound Museum, I can't remember the name of it. In the cabinet there was the colour by numbers outfit that he wore on stages and the really colourful one, the stage outfit.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh wow, that's great to see that up close. But yeah, I mean, that wasn't alongside these outfits in this exhibition. So it's kind of like, yeah, George's, I guess, collection of things is somewhat spread out already. So it couldn't be
Well, and
contained to one thing.
it's something that I remember from a few years ago during the Life tour. He wore the same jacket that he wore in the Live My Life video, that
Yeah,
dark long jacket with the safety pins all over it. So I mean that's recycled from 30 years before, and so he does hold on to things, and he does still make use of them at least. Um,
yeah.
so I don't know if he'll miss or regret getting rid of some of these things, but I can't imagine him ever wearing that war song outfit again.
Could you
Um,
imagine? He could, you know what? He could, and he could get away with it. But yes, I
he
mean,
could, but it's much. I mean, in recent years he hasn't refreshed his look quite as often as he used to, but I think generally speaking, his look has not been quite as in your face as some of those 80s indulgences.
yeah. So some of the outfits, I mean, just to list them, and while we're talking about them, we'll sort of
Mhm.
show you photos of this. We've got a few of George's 70s outfits. You know, most recognizable would be the studded leather jacket that George wore to the Blitz Club and through his clubbing days.
Mhm.
It was sort of the jacket that you saw in some of the early shots where he had the hair going up to the skies, um, and the sort of really dramatic makeup. And more recently, when George was sort of adopting a punk look to promote the This Is What I Do album, that
Mhm.
jacket made a recent appearance then. So it's been sort of a mainstay throughout George's life and career, and yeah, made appearances over the years. Likewise, there's a leather jacket which George customized to say Elvis on the back, which people may remember from seeing photos of George's early days and like stuff like When Cameras Go Crazy. And there's the sort of plaid suit which George wore in a pre-Culture Club interview, um, which often gets shown as, oh, here's the first footage ever of Boy George, where he was talking about fashion and style and being individual. Going into Culture Club days, it was things like we talked about the pink color by numbers outfit. There
Mhm.
was the yellow one, which was also in the exhibition, which George wore mostly during promoting Karma Chameleon. So the classic Top of the Pops performances, Russell Harty. When George was on David Letterman for the first time, he wore the yellow version of that outfit.
Mhm.
Um, we've got things like the green overcoat that George wears in the Whisper video clip, which was a Jean Paul Gaultier outfit.
That's
Um,
beautiful outfit.
yeah, and in the exhibition that's sort of accessorized by Judy Blame scarf, which was done with shoelaces and buttons and the likes.
Mhm.
At the exhibition opening, Philip Treacy was there, who was involved with George over many years, designing many of his hats. So there's a few of Philip's hats there. Most notably, there's the Don't Mind If I Do hat, as in the hat that George wears on that album cover, which
Mhm.
also was used in a few promo shots from the sort of 98, 99 era. So that sits in the background as well on the Greatest Moments album cover. And yeah, so that made an appearance a few times over that era.
Mhm. It's right
There,
there on your shirt too.
it is too. I wasn't really, there it is. No, that side. It's like, how do I look at this thing when it's all mirrored? But yeah, no, it's there. Um, and there's the giant red and yellow hat, which you would recognize from the I Just Want to Be Loved video as well,
Mhm. Mhm.
which looks larger than life even in this exhibition, where all the other hats are like this, and then there's that. Um, there's the blue bowler hat, which was a child of the Jago hat, which George had customized with a wire sort of frame going around it and a signature on the
Mhm.
sort of hat side of it, and then sort of goes down to squiggles over his face. He wore that when he was a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race UK. So that's where you might recognize that hat from.
I believe he wore it on his last US tour as well, the the solo tour,
Okay.
or something similar to it. I know he had the wire signature
Yeah.
um, on his hat. So
Even though this was a small exhibition, there was quite a lot to pack in.
mhm. Yeah, it's a small square footage, but a ton of merchandise.
Yeah.
It's
So we haven't
probably like
covered
a lot what his
everything.
closet looks like.
Can you imagine if this is just that little, footprint? What else is there?
Hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, through the photos, you'll see that there are some other outfits. But yeah, we've covered most of them in this chat. And it'll be very interesting to see what gets added onto this mini exhibition for the Julian's auction called Bold Luxury, the George Edit, when that
Hmm.
comes around towards the end of June and auctioned at the beginning of July.
Yeah, yeah, exciting. I might try and get to that. That's in Southern California, right?
Yeah, in Beverly Hills.
It's in Beverly Hills. Yeah, I might try and get to that. I don't know if I can or not. The timing might be rough because I know I have things planned, but
If you
we'll
can
see what we
sneak
can
and
do.
take lots of photos.
I would, yeah.
I'm hoping they do a printed catalog because I'd love to buy just the catalog just so I can see all those things in detail.
Me too.
Because
Or
they
and just have a record of what he put up on auction.
this may be the last time we see them publicly, so it'd be good to have a record of that before it goes off on its next chapter.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah,
But I mean, it could be sold to a, like you said, Hard Rock or some kind of museum that would display it, at least part of it. So
yeah,
it may not be the end. I'm
yeah.
sure there'll be investors buying it, and they'll be putting them up for sale again in a few years and twice the price.
As it always turns out. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I'd buy one, but one, I don't have the budget, and two, I don't have the space in this flat anymore.
No, no.
I have to be
I,
selective. So the next topic of our video chat is the wonderful Boy George and Culture Club documentary directed by
mhm,
Alison Elwood. Um, it has been out now for about a year in various forms. It started off at the Tribeca Festival in New York this time last year,
mhm.
has seen its way around a few film festivals in America, Europe, and around the world. It has made it to a couple of different TV screens in the UK and New Zealand. It's currently on streaming in Australia on the Stan streaming network. And coming up in June, it's getting a wider US release.
That's right, June 6th. So that's really just 2 weeks from now that we're recording this. And it's going to be on Netflix, I believe. Um,
I
is that
haven't I haven't seen the details of what they're doing with the sort of wider
okay?
US release. I've heard two different things that it's coming to streaming and that it's
Mhm.
also getting a limited cinema release.
Okay.
But
Well, I will
nothing
keep my eyes open for that and maybe update in the comments if I see something about it coming to the US cinemas.
But yeah, but nothing's been definite as to exactly where it's going, other than it's getting a wider release in June,
Mhm,
which I mean, it was announced very widely in the sort of press when it was
mhm.
announced. So don't know the complete details of that, but you will be seeing it if you're in the US next month.
If you
Yeah,
haven't seen it already, and if you have,
it,
watch it again.
yeah,
I watched it again yesterday for the first time in a little while, preparing for this conversation, and there's it needs to be seen several times to appreciate. There's lots of stuff coming at you in that 90 minutes. A lot of it's rapid fire, and of course, a lot of it is familiar material to longtime fans like ourselves. But there's always a little nugget of something in there that it's like I've never heard that before, or this is brand new to me, or this is a very interesting perspective. So it's worth watching several times at least to kind of commit that stuff to memory.
yeah, absolutely. The one thing I do love about this documentary, which I don't think has been done previously in other productions representing or presenting Culture Club story, is that all four members of Culture Club are somewhat contributed equally to this or have been interviewed separately for this. So you
Mhm.
get full versions of the story from all of them.
True.
And
Yes.
And that's something I thought from the outset is great because I know whenever I'm trying to put something together for Cyber Chameleon, I'm mindful that Culture Club is four of them, or is currently three of them, but is four of them. And yes, George as the frontman, you know, the main person as far as the image and their sort of visual goes. Yes, most of the press and the attention goes towards him, but it's always good to acknowledge that Culture Club is a band, has always been a band, and each of their contributions, should be appreciated as
Mhm.
such.
And I don't really want to give anything away, so no spoilers here. But if you haven't seen it yet, but I laughed the way they introduced John. The way that he was brought into the documentary was very different from the other three, and I
It
thought
was,
it was kind of pointed and poignant and still funny. I don't know
it
if
was,
John was behind that or who came up with that idea, but if
it
you
was, it was like
um,
God was walking into the room.
it was kind of like that,
It was like
yes.
very glorious music, and there he
Hmm.
comes through the door and stuff. It's like,
Look who we
well,
got.
it's like I don't know if it needed that, but that is one of those moments that made me go, okay. With that said, I think out of the four of them, John's story probably got the I get I guess the best presentation out of them. Would you agree with
Yeah, I do. I mean, it carried through like from beginning to end. It was present through the entire documentary, and where his relationship with the band in particular, and I mean in general, and George with George in particular, where he stood at that moment of each moment that they talked about, they kind of reflected on John's position, and that's not to say that the others didn't get plenty of airtime too, or part of the story. But I think that the concept behind this documentary was what kind of influence did John have on this band and still has on this band? Because anyone who thinks that he doesn't still have an influence on this band is kind of crazy because he does. The songs are about him, and everyone knows that it would have never happened had it not been the four of them with the two of them in a relationship.
one doesn't exist without the other, really.
Right. One of the things that I found as a longtime fan that I didn't expect to find new is how soon Roy and Mikey were, made aware of what was happening between George and John, because I thought they kept that secret even from them. But apparently they knew from day one.
Which would have made for a
Um,
very interesting dynamic from the start, really.
well, especially since they were against it, not because of any kind of homophobia, but because they just thought that it was a bad idea to have a relationship within the band when they were trying to get it started. And I don't think that they were wrong. I do feel like John's contributions to the band and in his romance with George was very important to who Culture Club became. But from the founding moments, it's like, no, this isn't going to work. You know, you don't sleep with coworkers, no matter what your job is.
And from
um,
that perspective, it's amazing that it lasted as long as it did and
it
that
did.
Culture Club still exists.
The documentary insinuated that they were still together in like after Culture Club stopped, in '86 when George's problems were becoming so hard to ignore. They never really put a date on when they broke up, but leading up to that segment, they were still together and trying to work things out. I thought things ended long before that. I thought things ended like before Waking Up with the House on Fire even came out, and they were just still trying to be friendly.
If I were to put a sort of timeline on it, I think they sort of broke up really during the Waking Up with the House on Fire era.
Hmm.
And when you look at the sort of footage that they use in the documentary of that era, you could just see George getting constantly irritated by John's presence next to him. I guess the peak of their relationship was over by that point.
I'm also surprised at how well, and this is from the memory of a 14-year-old teenager in the United States. I was clueless. I had no idea that they were together until '86. And I was really shocked at how open they were around the press and around their friends, around each other, and they managed to keep it secret for so long. You all remember how shocked America was when George called himself a drag queen at the Grammys. Um, And although I wasn't shocked by that, he was still pretending he wasn't gay, or at least he wasn't saying it out loud.
Well,
And for him to be in this relationship and open about it with so many people and it didn't come out is pretty shocking to me.
the signs were always there that John and George were together. But of course, when either of them were ever asked, they kind of brushed it off or said, "Oh no," George would say something like, "Of course I love John, but I love everyone in the band. What are you talking about?"
Mhm.
In hindsight, a lot of that footage is like, how could you not see that? I guess it
Well,
was the
that's
way
true
it was
too.
presented and I guess what they wanted to tell you or didn't tell you. But I think it was almost like it was a well-known secret to anybody who was involved anyway.
I think that
Um,
America in general is just so conservative that they didn't want to see it, so they didn't see it.
yeah,
We didn't want to admit that this person who's at the top of our charts and on our television every day is gay. So since he's not talking about it, we're not going to talk about it, and it's so much easier to pretend it's not happening that way.
how important was it or wasn't it that George was gay? You know,
Well, it wasn't important at all. To the art. I think it
yeah,
was incredibly important to his gay fans, especially people like myself who was struggling with my own identity at that time. I was what 13 years old when Culture Club came out, so I wasn't. I don't know that I knew I was gay then. So it was incredibly important to have people telling me I'm gay and I'm successful. I'm gay and
yeah.
I am still important in the world. And lots of my favorite music artists are gay. And I've always wondered, do I like them because they're gay, or is their art appealing to gay people, or is it just a coincidence that I like them? Because I don't really care what hairstyle they're wearing or who they were dating or anything like that. All I really cared about was the music.
Pop music can be sort of queer coded, for want
Hmm.
of, better phrasing. Um, you know, I was 5 or 6 when Culture Club were huge and when I first got into them.
Hmm.
I had no concept of what gay was. People would call George all the slurs, whether he was a poof, whether he was, whatever. And, would say, "Oh, you're that if you like him." It's like, but what concept did I have of that when I was 5?
From the teenager age, there's that whole rebellious period.
Hmm.
And there's nothing more exciting than to bring home a record that my mother would turn her face up at, or go, oh. But she still liked Karma Chameleon. She didn't
Oh,
care about that. She hated the video. When she first saw the video, she was shocked. I can't believe I like this song, and that is what sings it.
that is what sings it like it's a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
My dad hated George and everything he possibly stood for. Mum
Hmm.
loved him,
Hmm.
but and in any case, they were Culture Club were very mainstream, and people loved them for I guess the music or the look or whatever the fashion was at that moment that sort of got them into everybody's consciousness.
I tend to agree, like they said in this documentary, and they've said their whole career, the music was always quality, very high.
Yeah,
It was always important, and it was what they did. The image was secondary to all that. But I feel like the imagery kind of, it's like the music dragged you in, and the imagery made you stick around. It's like, I love this song, and what is all this going on? Like, kind of like my mom. What's that? I wanted to know more about who was doing these songs.
that was sort of a narrative in the documentary that I was kind of like, oh, I didn't really think it affected them as much as it did. And it was just how much the press or the industry or even the fans to that matter focus so much more on the image and what
Hmm.
George possibly stood for than the music.
Hmm.
Um, a narrative that sort of weaves in and out of the documentary is just how increasingly irritated George got being asked about his image when you have 3 other guys next to him who are all musicians and all very good at what they do, but
Hmm.
they weren't being
And all
asked
good
about that.
looking. I mean, let's be honest, they all looked good. They all
Yeah.
were handsome men. There was no reason to single George out as being the one to look at. Uh,
Yeah, certainly. But nobody seemed to ask the questions of like, so tell us how these songs were put together or
mhm.
what inspired you to write this particular album this way or anything. It was all just like, where did you get your hat from, George? And there's that famous scene in the documentary where George absolutely loses it at someone for asking about his hat rather
Mhm.
than asking anything about the music or the tour that they were promoting or whatever it is they were doing in that minute. And the reason why
Mhm.
they were there for a press conference, they weren't there to look at George's hat.
While I 100% agree with everything that you just said, I I'm a little disappointed that George would feel that way. You can't, especially in the 80s, you could not step that far outside of what's normally accepted and not expect people to ask you about it.
Yeah.
It's okay to be irritated by it, but you can't just think they're going to stop asking because you're tired of it. And part of, I think, that irritation that he felt led to him getting more and more effeminate and extreme in his looks and go from braids and black hats to yellow and red Susie and the Banshee wigs and full drag at the Grammys. Um, and I think that America in particular got tired of that. They liked George because he was safe before, when it wasn't fully woman and it was still, cute looks. And then when as he got more extreme and almost comedic and Phyllis Dillery, I think a lot of America, especially the Midwest, kind of it's like, no, we can't, we just can't.
This is
And
too much now, that sort of
yeah,
thing.
I don't think that the records got worse. I mean, were they as good as Color by Numbers? No, but who could have made another Color by Numbers?
We see this in a lot of sort of different artists and stuff in that how do you follow a peak era? You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
with like say something like the Michael Jackson Michael biopic that's out at the moment. How could he have followed up Thriller with the expectation that whatever he did next was going to be as big? You just
Hmm.
can't go into a project like that. You know, Michael wanted to sell 100 million copies of Bad, and when it didn't reach the same figures as Thriller, everybody already was writing him off as a flop. You
Yeah.
know, in some cases, Bad may be a better album than Thriller.
And isn't it still like the second or third best-selling album?
Yeah,
I
but it
mean,
was also seen as
it's not a failure.
not being good enough.
Yeah, that's
So, you know, how would Culture Club have followed Color by Numbers and with what? They
right.
did,
Right.
yes, Waking Up was the result of a very rushed process because they only had a space of maybe a month or a month and a half to record and finish an album, which was not how
Hmm.
they wrote and recorded the albums before that.
Correct.
But the songs on there weren't bad. It was, you know,
No.
it still holds up as a fairly decent album.
Hmm.
And for anybody else, that would have been a possibly, you know, their best selling album. But for Culture Club, it came off the bat of Color by Numbers and was one of those things that was incredibly impossible to beat.
I mean, if they had taken the exact same songs and the exact same production and everything else and waited another year before they put it out, I wonder how different things might have been. I think people were, like I said, growing a little bit tired of him and the looks and all of that. So they didn't give the songs a chance. And if it had a little more time to breathe and maybe tweak a couple of things here and there, it could have been another Color by Numbers. Um,
But then you also see with From Luxury to Heartache, which did have that sort of years process to
mhm.
turn into a full album. That by then, I guess the guys were sort of losing interest in Culture Club, and by the guys mostly George.
Mhm.
But the end result was a good album that was also largely ignored by the wider public.
I think it was poised to do better, and then all of his personal dragons, demons, drugs, kind of brought all that to a screeching halt.
Yeah,
It, and I'll say the exact opposite. If they had put that album out a little bit sooner than they did and given it time to have its normal promotional period when George was healthier, I bet it would have stood up better than it did.
yeah.
But
I mean, if
because it was a summer album in the summer that George almost died, who knows how many times, it's a wonder it even got released.
if it got the sort of typical October November release that the previous three albums had, it may have done better 6 months earlier,
Hmm.
where they were all a little bit more into it,
Hmm.
had more time to sort of promote it. Um, I hate the word strategy or being strategic, but if they had the strategic plan of, okay, what single one and when's coming out, when is that coming out, when is single two coming out, when's single three, and
Hmm.
actually staggered the releases with enough time for it to breathe, yeah, it would have definitely had a longer life than you know, single number one in March '86, album out in April, single two in May, and
Right.
then
And that's
and
it.
then and then that was it, because they
Yeah.
couldn't really go much further with it, even though they wanted to. But by then, George was off with his own problems. Roy and Alison were having their child. John was already separated from George and, off dating somebody else, which would have
Mhm.
created all sorts of tension that how dare John move on.
Right.
um, with that said, George was already with Michael and moved on from John, but that would have still been like, how dare John move on?
Mhm.
And yeah, so it was all falling apart at that point, so they couldn't have really done anything else that they could have in that era. Yeah, but going but more back to the documentary, I loved how much archival footage there was that we
Mhm.
had rarely seen, if had ever seen. I love that
Even some
the
of the stuff that we had seen before, like I know that they used a lot of A Kiss Across the Ocean footage as backdrops when they were talking
yeah,
about the certain songs, but it was all different angles and different shots than what ended up in the final footage. So even something like that, where it's like, oh, here's church again that I've seen a million. Oh no, it's not the same I've seen. You get to see where all that silly string comes from and how Roy deals with it, instead of just it being like part of his guitar during one shot. And I like that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, good. This is not a waste of my time. There's lots of interesting tidbits, and I'll use the word Easter eggs that they talk about when there's little surprises in movies that relate to other things. Um,
yeah. I mean, even those few seconds of little outtakes from I'll Tumble For Ya and
mhm,
Mistake Number Three. It's like,
right.
oh, they've actually contacted the people who made the clips and got extra footage.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, it would have just been easy to have gone onto YouTube or got a previous VHS or DVD and just remastered the video clips and thrown that in
Right.
there. But the fact they went to other people and went, "Oh, we're doing this documentary. Can we use stuff? Do you have any?" I
I
mean,
wonder how much more they got. I would love to,
I know.
you know
I,
me. I
I
would,
want the 10-hour director's cut. Um,
yeah. I'll tumble for you.
yeah, just of that, that'll do. No, but I mean of the whole
Yeah.
documentary to hear what else they had to say. But, you know,
Mhm,
I loved that they went and used a couple of Culture Club's early demos. White
mhm.
Boys in there. I think I'm Afraid
I
of
love
Me was
Twist.
in there. Love Twist was in there, which,
Hmm.
hasn't been released. There were things like the early footage of Culture Club performing at the Hacienda,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
that hasn't had a wide release beyond, a couple of promo clips or sample clips that have popped up on YouTube.
Right.
Um, and of course, the multitude of personal and outtakes of photos from I guess, their photo albums and all of that sort of stuff.
Right. Right. They
Yeah,
had some rehearsal footage from Waking Up with the House on Fire tour, um, where it was the two backing singers doing the lead vocals. I mean, that was a very brief shot, and if you weren't paying attention, you may not realize that they weren't singing the backing up parts. But it was like that's the kind of stuff that I like to see. It's like that should be more widely available to fans. I say should be, and I know that's not a priority of anyone in the bands to get unfinished and raw stuff out. But that's the kind of stuff that we would really love to see in things like this, even if it's half a song as opposed to one line, um, just to help us get a better idea of what it was like, what the creative process is like. Um,
you, you
Roy
know,
talked about how color during Color by Numbers, how that's the way was basically done on the fly. It was a complete improv. He was messing around with some chords, and George started singing something over that and called Helen in, and they said, okay, we're going to do this. And they did it in one take. That to me, I mean, that's one of the most powerful songs that they've ever recorded. Just the emotion behind it. And, it may not be that meaningful to casual listeners, but I know it's meaningful to George, and I know it means a lot to me and a lot of fans to find out after 40 plus years that they did that almost like I don't want to say a joke, but without any forethought or any planning. They just walked in. It's like, okay, here, da, 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 and do it. Like, my God, the talent these men have, and the emotional connection that they had to have had with each other to be able to do that. A lot of jazz bands, getting into some ancient history here,
mm,
but a lot of jazz musicians in America in the 40s, um, They were accused of being gay because they had that kind of emotional and obvious bond on stage where one could look at another and say like that, and they would change chords and they would change riffs and they would change timing and without saying a word to each other. And that kind of connection is precious, I think.
It's almost like reading minds in a way.
Hmm.
Like thinking
Hmm.
of, "Oh, what are they going to do next? And let's see if we try this and, see where it goes."
I love the documentary. I've got to say, it's there's a lot in it to get excited about. And I mean, I have pages and pages of notes that I wanted to talk about, and we've only really barely touched them. And
I know we've scratched. Yeah, I mean, very long story short, if you haven't seen it, see it. If you've seen it,
Mhm,
see it again. Um,
mhm.
there's, like David said at the beginning of this, there are so many things that make up this documentary that it does require multiple watchings to get everything out of it that you could possibly want.
Mhm.
I would have loved to
I,
have seen, I think I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of Mikey and Roy's stories because the narrative of the documentary was very centric to John and George's relationship. So therefore, John got a lot of the time.
I think that Roy and Mikey got a lot of quality time, though.
They got
What
quality
they
time.
had was incredibly important and insightful to the documentary. Uh, they didn't waste any of the moments that they had because I learned more from their segments, I think. New stuff for me as a fan to learn something new is exciting. I learned more from them than I did from anything that George or John had to contribute. I
Sure.
think they just kind of kept the narrative organized, but Roy and Mikey and the research did a lot of the heavy lifting in it for me, for what made me enjoy it.
From the John and George side of things, I guess it affirmed what their relationship was and to a point what their
Mhm.
relationship is even now, if that makes
Right, and,
sense.
and that's one of the notes that I have down here is that the split in 2018 was a horrible time for everybody. John was doing things that were despicable, and George was too, most likely. But even this documentary, I'm not sure how long ago it was filmed compared to the issues that were going on. But John mentions, I'm suing the band right now, and I'm still talking about being in it. And we're still talking about me doing a few shows. There was so much positivity still from both of them about their relationship, despite all these things happening. That's a nice little, I don't want to call it closure, but it's a nice little punctuation mark at the end of this part of the band's history that there is still good things to come.
And that's the thing, even though John isn't a member legally of Culture Club anymore, he could still be involved with Culture Club at any point. They could hire him as a musician at any point, like they would
Mhm,
anybody else that you see on that stage.
mhm.
So it's not over yet for the original four getting back together.
Even if they
Sure.
never do,
Yeah,
I
but
think that I think that Culture Club is in a good place right now. I, um, I think that they have very strong musicians working with them, and they have this impeccable history to draw from to carry them forward. And like what our next topic is the tours that are coming up. Um, they couldn't be doing these kinds of things if it wasn't for John's presence in the band and his influence over the songwriting. So even if he never steps foot on the stage with them, he's going to always be there in spirit.
definitely. But there's always opportunity if that opportunity arises. Yeah.
Right.
I,
Right.
I, I think that's the takeaway from the documentary that should the right should there be the right timing and the right opportunity, yeah, they'd all work together again.
Hmm.
Now just may not be it.
Or even with things like this, rather than doing records or tours, maybe it's doing history or assembling a retrospective box set or something.
Put John in
What?
charge of that.
Yeah, well,
Give him
yeah,
the old albums to, polish up and put out as the deluxe sets we need. All the old demos, all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
Get it happening, people. Come on.
But there's always there's always an opportunity for him to be involved, and I'm glad to see that the door isn't locked, even if
No,
it's maybe pushed to right now.
yeah. Or open a jar. There's a crack in the wall somewhere.
Yeah, he can look in. It's like, oh,
There's
oh,
a
not yet.
peephole. That's the documentary. If you haven't seen it, yeah, please do.
Mhm.
Moving on to the next thing. What's coming up in the next few weeks is that the fine fellows behind the magazine Classic Pop are putting out a special issue dedicated to George and Culture Club called The Chameleons of Pop.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to start off this, and of course, you know where this is going, David, because you've been sort of eavesdropping, listening, reading drafts, all of that sort of stuff. But what's very exciting about this issue that in amongst all the things that they're going to have in this issue, which we'll talk about, is an interview with yours truly. They approached me probably, I think it was around February, March, and said they were doing this issue and would I like to be involved in a feature article about Cyber Chameleon because they had seen the work that we did on Travelog and were very
Mhm.
excited about it. So I said, yeah, of course. I sent him everything they could possibly need from Travelog, and I got a lengthy question and answer sheet because it was all done via email. I thought a Zoom would have been quicker, but they did their research, people, because there was stuff about me I didn't realize people knew.
I will say, when I first heard that they were going to talk to you and not us, I was a tiny bit dejected. But then when I saw the kinds of questions that they had dug up about you, I'm like, oh, good. Thank God they didn't get into my
Yeah,
past.
then it's like, okay, it's fine if you take that sort of step back because the questions were quite detailed. Yeah, because I mean, on the onset, I thought it was just going to be an interview about Travelog, which in that case,
Mhm.
yeah, it should have been both of us. But the sorts of questions that you will see in this article is about, I guess, the history of Boy George and Culture Club websites since the 90s. I guess the basic overall thing is this article is my history with Culture Club. You know,
Mhm.
as a fan, as a webmaster, as a you name it, whatever you want.
Historian, a
Yeah,
historian. That's what I want us to be known as. I don't know if that's how you feel or not, but that's what I've always thought of
well,
you as.
it's leading into that, isn't it?
Mhm.
And it feels really weird. I'm a historian. I mean, I have no credentials for that, but sure, okay. But yeah, so it basically details, I guess, from my answers to a lot of these questions, the history of Culture Club and George sites and the internet going from the 90s onwards, how Cyber Chameleon was formed, the things we've done over the years with Cyber Chameleon, and that's, you know, books with David like Vanity Case and Travelog, and the things we're going to be doing. Yeah, there's a mention of that as well. Um, and just things like how many times have I met George and Culture Club over the years. You know what? If you want to know about the history of Cyber Chameleon, you're going to get a lot of it from this. And later down the track, after the issue's out, because they asked me a lot of questions, and I think they're only expecting one or two words for each answer, but I gave lots in those answers to the point where,
No,
you mean I talk a lot?
no, of course not.
But what they wanted was 1,000 word article. I gave them more than 5 or 6 thousand words.
The issue could have been devoted to you.
They could have done the whole magazine about me, but no, I wouldn't have wanted it, and neither would anybody else really. But what I asked the guys from Classic Pop if it was possible, could I put out an expanded version of my article to incorporate more of the answers that I gave, and they said sure. So I'll be putting that on Cyber Chameleon in a couple of months' time. Let the magazine do its work first. But
Yeah,
so yeah, so there is an article about the history of Cyber Chameleon and Culture Club websites in there, but
which is also the history of Culture Club. Let's be honest.
in to a
The
point,
Cyber
yeah.
Chameleon couldn't. It's you're one of this. You're not Culture Club, obviously, but you wouldn't be Cyber
I've
Chameleon if
got
it
the hat
wasn't for Culture
though.
Club.
um,
You're what, the sixth member?
what's it, you know, if you're talking like the royal family and you've got the family tree of who's in line to the throne and what sort of connection they have, I'm probably just a footnote somewhere, but at least I'm on that tree, or at least I feel like I am. So
You're the
if I,
leaf that fell off.
I'm a leaf. um yeah, so other than the Cyber Chameleon feature in Chameleons of Pop, the Culture Club special issue of Classic Pop, they've got archival interviews because they've interviewed George and the band many times over the years. They've got new interviews with Steve Levine and Phil Pickett and their time of working with George and Culture Club. They've got detailed pieces on each album, which they asked me for little tidbits about Kissing to Be Clever, so I want to see what makes it in.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and I know one other thing that I contributed to, which wasn't featured sort of on their press release for the magazine, is that they're doing a sort of countdown of their top 40 Georgian Culture Club songs, and they asked me for my top 40.
Hmm.
I know I'm not going to give away what's number one. I know what's number one, but and oddly enough, I forgot to put it in my list. And then when they said number one, it's like, oh, I didn't write that in there, and of course it's in there, duh. But yeah, so there's a top 40, and there'll be all sorts of other stuff. So I think without even seeing the magazine in full, it's definitely a must get for any Culture Club collection. And I'll
Hmm.
be putting a link down, in the description for this episode so people can order or pre-order it depending on when you're seeing this. But yeah, very excited about being featured in a special issue about Culture Club.
I'm sure a lot of us watching this are familiar with Classic Pop as a magazine in general, but they've been doing these kind of band-centric issues for a while now, and they are always very interesting reads. Even bands that I'm not that interested in, I will, browse through and read about, and I think this is so well done. Um, so I'm very much looking forward to this one. I think it's long overdue, and I hope that it gets more people interested in what Cyber Chameleon is doing, obviously, but also in what George is going to be doing in the future. Because this is not a in memory of or a closing chapter on his book. This is still part of his career that's still going on. So
Absolutely. And it's nice to see Culture Club getting, I guess, a spotlight on a special issue of their own because, not many people do that these days.
mhm, mhm. Print is not dead.
So yeah, so moving on just a little bit from the Boy George and Culture Club documentary, I want to point out a video that I absolutely loved on YouTube. So the Echoes Across Time podcast featured Roy in an episode recently, and I think it is up there with the Culture Club documentary as to how detailed Roy goes into his experience with fame and being in Culture Club and everything that sort of happened to him before and since as well.
Mhm.
And I would go as far as saying that that is the best interview I've ever seen Roy take part in. David, have you seen much of it? And what were your thoughts?
I have seen some of it, but I only learned about this yesterday, and I had a lot of preparing to do, so I didn't get to watch all of it. But what I have seen, I 100% agree with. I like the fact that he is talking so openly about his own drug problems, which he was kind of George kind of chastised him about during in the documentary because it's like everyone talks about my problems, but nobody else does. Well, here Roy is talking about his, and it's an interesting perspective to hear Roy talk about his own as opposed to being forced to talk about George's. I think that Roy is in a much better place today than even at the height of Culture Club fame in terms of how he looks at his career, and he just has a more positive outlook. I think that there's a lot of positivity going on in Culture Club camp right now, and I'm here for it. I love it. I love that people are looking forward to the future and that they're able to look back at their past without being so hypercritical of it
Yeah,
and talk about how they learned and grew from it.
yeah, with a lot of the interviews, whether it's the documentary or Roy's one, they're a little bit more respectful of their past rather than just being dismissive and doing the why do you want to know about that again type thing.
Mhm.
They're more open to talking about it.
Mhm. And that translates into respect for us as fans. A lot of times I feel like they're almost making fun of us for being fans in the past, and now they're treating their past as the way we always had, as something that should be, enjoyed and experienced from a different place than just the negativity that goes along with it. So
Yeah, and just
I'm,
I guess just well regarded in general.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, so if you get a chance, please look at the Echoes Across Time interview with Roy. I'll include a link in our description below so you can see that.
I'm gonna have to check out more from this guy because he seems to draw a lot out of Roy that,
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see how he treats other celebrities.
it looks like a good channel. So the final sort of topic is, well, what's next or what's coming up in the Georgian Culture Club universe? And this July, we've got the Bold Luxury Boy George Edit auction at Julian's Auction, featuring
Mhm.
a lot of the outfits that were in the exhibition, the Chameleon of Style exhibition. as well as who knows what else might pop up in this auction for us to potentially own ourselves. No, I don't have the cash for that, but yeah.
No. There's a lot of live appearances coming up as well. Not
There,
just concerts, but they're doing George is doing a lovely little guest appearance with Lulu, who
let's
I think this is going to be like her finale to her career. It's like a she announced that she was going to retire before she announced this concert. So I assume that this is going to be kind of a farewell to her lengthy and illustrious career.
Lulu's bringing out all the guests, I think, for this
Hmm.
appearance at the Royal Albert
Hmm.
Hall on June 1st. I mean, other than George, we've got Delta Goodrem, we've got Gary Barlow, and we've got Robbie Williams listed on the bill. There'll
Hmm.
probably be others, but
Probably, yes,
having
yes.
having that many people on in one show, it's actually quite a special one. I wish I was in London to see that one.
It makes me wonder what he's going to do, what George is going to do with her, because she appeared at a couple of Culture Club shows a few years back at the Hollywood Bowl, and she did her big signature hit. Um,
Was it To Say With Love?
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that called? And then they did Karma Chameleon, and then she tried to get them to do Shout, the
And that popped
50s song,
that
and
popped up in there once or twice, didn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but they didn't know what she meant when she said, "Do you know Shout?" Because they started playing the Tears for Fears song instead, and
Which would have made for a
so
different
she went
experience.
along with it. And when it came to the break in the middle, she started singing the 50s song, "You know you make me wanna shout,"
Yeah.
and they all picked up and went on. So it was like a mashup, but it was obviously not rehearsed because it was kind of funny and it was well done. But so I don't know what she'll do with George.
So yeah, so other than the guest spot on Lulu's show, Culture Club
Hmm.
have a couple of shows coming up in throughout July. Well, throughout the Northern Hemisphere summer, really.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
live in Milan on July 9th.
Yeah.
They're doing the Solihull Summerfest on July 19.
Hmm.
We've got a couple of shows as part of the 80s Live in Germany, which is at Hamburg in July on the 18th there and Frankfurt on
Hmm.
August the 8th. Oddly
And
enough,
that's a pretty big festival for German,
yeah.
by German standards. I mean, they've been doing that for years. I know I have. Uh, they did. He's on this album from a few
Okay.
years ago. I thought it was going to be live recordings. Unfortunately, it's not. But they did Karma Chameleon and Everything I Own, and then a whole bunch of other 80s artists, big, big names, and some German artists too that I wasn't familiar with, but I do enjoy. So this is not this isn't a small thing. This could be this is a major event in summer festivals. So I'm looking forward to see what happens with that and hope that Culture Club get more than just the one or two songs that most people will get. I'm not sure if they're counted as headliners or not there, but
As far as I know, they are the headliners.
then they should get at least a half an hour, I would hope.
Yeah. Well, last time George did one of those, I think it was a half-hour set.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'd imagine it'd be somewhat of the same again.
And you know how George is, a half hour set for him is a 45-minute show for it ends up becoming a 45-minute show.
Yeah.
um,
And then, sort of going into the end of August and September, we've got the Washington State Fair, we've got a show
mhm,
in Costa Mesa, and
mhm.
also in Vancouver, Canada, as part of their P&E Fair.
And I
So,
have my tickets right here for those shows. It's a new thing for me because this will be the very first time in my entire life that I've traveled outside of the United States specifically to see a concert. I have never seen George play anywhere but in the USA. And Vancouver is
it's
not that far.
it's not that far, but yeah, it's still
Yeah,
another country.
there's very little risk of culture shock. Um, but I am kind of excited to finally say I've traveled beyond the borders of my native country to see Culture Club perform. And I like the idea of these state fairs. One of my favorite shows I ever saw was at the Arizona State Fair in 2000, and I didn't know what to expect. And the tour up to that point had been a disaster. And um, Culture Club's words, not mine. And they ended up having a great time at that show and said so on stage, and not in the way that most people do. They said it like they meant it, because they even said they weren't expecting to enjoy it, and they did.
I've been to Vancouver. I've been to the
Hmm.
P&E Fair, but I haven't
Hmm.
seen Culture Club there. That's got to be
Yeah.
my next trip. Not for this show, but I've got to go back there again.
Well, since I bought these tickets, I've been getting emails from that fair almost every day. There's all kinds of artists that are being announced and adding to it. So it's going to be a pretty big deal. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, that they've actually got a really great lineup overall, and Culture Club, I think, is the final night of that season.
They are. They're
Yeah.
the last night, and but they're not the only artists that day. So I'll be there with my husband, and it'll be his first time seeing Culture Club in over 10 years. He doesn't really do that much with me when it comes to that, so that'll be fun. Um, I almost think he's looking forward to it.
You hope he is.
Yeah, yeah. He's. I told Vangelis last time I saw him that my husband doesn't usually come to these because he's not a Culture Club fan. He's like, then why did you marry him?
If only that were a prerequisite to everything. In the early days of dating at some different points, the second they've got George and George Michael confused was when I kind of lost interest.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. That's a big mistake to make.
Yeah, it's like, I'm telling them, oh, I'm a Culture Club fan, blah, 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 I love Boy George. And the next time they met, it's like, oh, yeah, I like George Michael too. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Where's this going?
I was at a doctor's appointment recently, and I had just gotten back from the last time I saw them on tour, and I told them, "Oh, I just came home from a show," and they said, "Oh, who did you see?" And I said, "Boy George and Culture Club," and they're like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, my
Uh,
doctor doesn't know who they are."
I think
I,
that's even more of a worry, but yeah.
it is because you like to think your doctors know everything, but
Yeah, they're supposed
this
to
is
know
a
everything about
dermatologist,
you, and how do they not know that?
this is a dermatologist. It's not like life or death stuff.
And so this was where I guess this video chat was supposed to end. But in the last
Hmm.
sort of 24 hours or so, we've been somewhat blessed with the announcement that Culture Club are going on tour in the UK this December.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Very,
So,
very exciting, because
mm,
it's not a no arguments tour, and it's not a this
but
is my
that tour
favorite
is really good.
70s tour. This is a singles tour, with
Yeah.
ABC and Haircut 100. Let's not leave them off the
So that's
bill.
a
Uh,
great lineup.
it is a great lineup, and they're all committed to doing singles.
I mean, it's called the Singles Tour, and it's supposed to be them playing all the songs we would love to hear. I loved that as a byline because I'm sure they're never going to play all the songs I want to hear. But as the press release says, it's going to be all the singles. So I'm hoping it's at least that.
I'm inclined to agree. I mean, in my mind, the Culture Club have their big eight, and that is all the singles that they released from "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me" until "Miss Me Blind." Those eight singles are their big, well-known songs.
Not the war
Um,
song?
no, because that didn't get played for so many years, and then it finally came in. So I'm thinking, if I were going to be planning this, I would say Culture Club is going to do their big eight, and then they're going to do the six singles from "Luxury to Heartache" and "Waking Up the House on Fire." That's 15 songs. That's probably all the time they're going to get. Now, will they do things like Metal Song or Gusto Blusto? Maybe not, and that would create slots for Life and I Just Want to Be Loved. I'm sure we will not get Metal Song. The band has already sworn they will never do that song again.
Damn.
I was actually listening to it today thinking, oh, this isn't so bad. It was
It's
the first
not.
12-inch single I
You know
ever
what?
owned. So
It would be interesting to hear what the metal song would sound like now with a modern arrangement,
true. I
or
mean,
with how
they
they
could
would
do like a little
format.
medley, these are the songs we don't really want to do. So here's a medley of Metal Song and Gusto Blesto. All those songs wouldn't go together very well at all.
If you're going by UK singles and not necessarily, then that would cut out probably Gusto Blusto, Mistake Number Three,
Mhm.
um, and a couple of others there. But if you're doing the UK singles run, will they include White Boy and I'm Afraid of Me?
I
I
hope
mean,
so.
I mean they have done it in recent times, so they could do it. Um,
At least White Boy. If you're going to call it
yeah,
singles and you don't do your first one, then that's really a disservice to everybody. Um,
I'm hoping the singles from the sort of Don't Mind If I Do era are covered. At the very least, I Just Want to Be Loved.
mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
I would absolutely love it if Your Kiss Is a Charity are in there because it's one of my
Me too.
favorites. But
Me too. I mean,
I
I could take a leave cold shoulder at this point.
I would love to see all of those. And yeah, and if you're going to include singles, more recent ones, I don't know if they're just sticking to the 80s run there, but then yeah, then you would have, you know, Let Somebody Love You, Life, Runaway
Hmm.
Train, More Than Silence,
Hmm.
and then going into, I guess, the two current singles as far as Letting Things Go and Next Thing Will Be Amazing.
And that's the problem. George has always said this, and I always thought that he was just kind of paying lip service to his career. But he always said that's the problem when you have a long career, a long successful career, is you have too much to choose from. And it's like he's saying this, he's got 25% of his show is covers by other artists. So if he were to do just a Culture Club show or just his own recordings, um, it is still true. I mean, I don't think there's going to be room for everything.
But there is enough just with the singles for a full set list.
Oh, beyond, yes, absolutely, absolutely. He could easily do a 2 hour set of just the singles, and that would get into things like Mistake Number Three and Love Is Love, and the ones that he's probably not going to play.
Yeah,
Uh,
so exciting times coming up
very,
in the
very.
Culture Club verse.
I'm wondering if these shows in the summer in Europe and the Northwestern United States are going to be anything like a dry run for the singles tour.
They perform most of the big singles on tour anyway, so that wouldn't be much of a stretch.
No, no, I wouldn't mind if they dropped a couple of them. I could do without uh, Miss Me Blind, or which I'm sure they'll never drop because that was a huge hit in America. Which I actually talked to Kevan about the possibility of, it would be really nice to hear the 12-inch arrangement of Miss Me Blind,
That
since to give you that big long song at the end, to give you plenty of room to introduce all the players on stage. And I pointed out where they all could have a solo in that song, and even with the refrain of "It's a Miracle" would give a chance for the backing singers to get their points in, or their intros in. And he kind of seemed like he liked the idea of it, so that would be an interesting way to close out the singles tour show.
it would work better than a 10-minute version of a cover that isn't Culture Club or isn't one of their singles.
Yeah, yeah, Sympathy for the Devil, which is I, I I hate that song, and long before George ever started covering it, I've always hated that song, and it's just a horrible, horrible song in my mind. So when they started doing it, just it's like that much more of an insult to me.
And that's my relationship with Get It On.
Yeah,
I did,
yeah,
I did,
I
I didn't hate that song, going into it, but now I never, ever, ever need to hear it again. Ever.
I won't say who told me this because it was kind of in confidence, but somebody in the band told me how much they hate Get It On. And I said, you need to tell George that Duran Duran do it, and he'll drop it right away.
Well, they did do it, didn't they, when they were in the power station? Yeah.
Yeah, they did. That's why they do it. But I don't know if that person ever told George what I said, but I noticed that they didn't play it last tour.
Well, I was just about to say, it changed to Children of the Revolution, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, which is
Yeah.
fine. I like that song
Yeah. At
a
least,
lot better, at
I mean,
least.
it shakes it up a bit. So there shouldn't be room for the covers in this tour if you're calling it the Culture Club Singles Tour.
Maybe that's what it's going to be. That'll be fun.
Fingers
Um,
crossed.
yeah, yeah. The advertisement does have the Everything I Own picture suite in it, so they might be bringing that one back.
Yeah.
But
Let's not make that the 10-minute version at the end.
right, right.
Overall, if it says it's a Culture Club Singles Tour and the songs we all want to hear, they should be Culture Club songs that we all want to hear.
I'm very anxious to see what they do, and I'm going to do my best to maybe go to England this December. That's the most expensive time of year to travel to England. So thank you for
It
that,
was.
George.
It
The
was,
tour
yeah.
takes place over my birthday. The next to the last night is my birthday. So that would be a nice time to go. But I have my eyes kind of on possibly ending up going to the show in Scotland, in Glasgow.
Hmm.
And because I found a flight that's super cheap. Nobody wants to go there in winter because it's cold and icy and miserable. So there is a hotel that is less than, um, for most people it'd be walking distance to the venue. But then of course you got to walk all the way around the venue and all that, which might be problematic for me in a wheelchair to do in the ice and snow. But where there's a will, there's a way. So
The things we do. This kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting this. I'm not
no,
against it,
I
but I
felt
wasn't
like
expecting it.
something. Well, and something else we didn't even mention is that George has that appearance on the West End in
Jesus
the
Christ Superstar.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. He's playing the role of King Herod for a week, and that's going to be a rotating role throughout the whole run. They've got lots of different stars doing that part, and it's a very short part. I mean, it's a 5-minute role. He's not a big character. It's a very critical moment in the play, if you're familiar with it at all. If I don't know how many would be, that's very, very old school. But um, the role is just a few minutes in the movie and a few minutes on stage, and it's really just one song, which is spoken word for the most part. And it's a turning point in the movie or in the story, and it's very important. But it's probably not a great vehicle for George to make himself known as a serious actor. But that I thought was going to be the end of his year. I think that's in November, isn't that November? You remember?
Jesus Christ. I think
Yeah.
August, isn't it? It's not that
Is
long.
it August?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's in between all these other dates we mentioned.
All right. Yeah. So that's not something I'll be going to England for.
As far as the singles tour being a sort of surprise announcement that I wasn't seeing coming, I'm
Mhm.
hoping that's preceded by a new album. Come on,
That would be very nice.
or
Or with all the nostalgia from the documentary and the singles tour, it could be a nice box set. What better time than Christmas to release a lovely little singles box set for Culture Club fans who have been waiting and begging and dying to get one? I don't know. I'm not even pretending that that's going to happen. I'm not hinting at that as something that I do know. I don't know, but that's what I would love to see, even more than a new album at this point.
my ultimate would be deluxe versions of all the original albums, including remixes, demos, outtakes, all of that sort of stuff. I hope it happens one day.
I hope we don't have to wait for someone to pass away for it to become a reality.
I think it's the right time now to be starting to do that, to sort of, I think I used the word or the phrase earlier about sort of cementing their legacy or curating it or making sure it's well architected. You know,
Exactly. And that's actually
I
when that
was
idea popped in my head when you said that earlier.
I was kind of using it in regards to George's clothes and stuff and where he hasn't done that with that, but it could still be done with the music as far as, having definitive versions of everything out there. They may not be the big sellers they once were, but you're selling it to the audience who are interested, and there's still a lot of interest.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot that hasn't come out yet
Hmm.
that
I mean, all you have to do is look at George's. I mean, we could do a whole episode on albums that never got released. Let's write that down.
we could.
um,
We could actually. If you want
no,
to see us do that, put it in the comments below.
it'd be nice to see if a release of some sort coincides with this tour, but who knows? A lot
Yeah.
can happen between now and December.
Well, and that's why I mentioned this now. I think there's time to pull something together, even if it's just a greatest hits album on vinyl. You know, kind of get in on the vinyl craze before it fizzles out, because I'm already starting to see stories that, oh, CDs are better, and how did vinyl ever happen again? Blah blah blah.
Oh,
So it's gonna,
it's like the mid to late '80s all over.
uh-huh. It just happened, in a matter of a couple of months instead of a couple of years. But the
Yeah, I
format
mean,
wars
I
and
would love to see, if Universal are going to reissue anything from sort of Culture Club's back catalogue on vinyl. Yes, I'd love to see things like coloured vinyl editions of Waking Up with the House on Fire and From Luxury to Heartache.
mhm,
But I'd also love to see some of the compilations released, on vinyl for the first time.
mhm.
Things
Don't
like,
Mind If I Do is a big hole in my collection that needs
yeah,
to be on vinyl.
Don't Mind If I Do,
Um,
definitely. Do it for a
the VH1 concert would be lovely too.
Yeah. I mean, with Don't Mind If I Do, purple vinyl, perfect. Bring it out
Yeah.
for next record store day. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, great. The VH1 Storytellers show would be a great one.
Hmm.
The Culture Club box set would be amazing, but that would be like 6 records, and I don't think that'll ever happen. Um,
It
but
could badmouth so much, I don't think anyone would buy it.
yeah, there's that too. But no, the one that I'd like to see was the greatest hits that came out after the box set, which uses that artwork.
Hmm.
I think that should be like the default Culture Club thing you see in a record shop anywhere.
Hmm.
All
It would be a
17,
beautiful picture disc.
yeah, all 15, 16, 17. I think it was a 17 track, across,
Depending on what country you're looking at, but yes, because the USA had different running order than UK, and Japan was different too, I believe.
a double album, 4 songs, 4 or 5 songs per side. There you go.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
should be the default in every record store, something you can find easily of Culture Club. But, Universal, call us. We have ideas.
I
Um,
don't think anything's in print right now. If I were to go to a
no.
record store and say I would like to order something from Culture Club, what's available? I don't think there's anything available new other than the Japanese ones that came out.
Or the blue vinyl of Color by Numbers, which,
True,
the
true.
official Culture Club channel is selling autographed copies of. Yeah, so that rounds up our video chat number 3. Um,
Uh-huh.
if you know, and this is the usual sort of spiel. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, X, the
Hmm.
website. All of that sort of stuff to find out what we're up to. There's more projects coming from us. Which we've talked
Hmm.
about in previous episodes.
I do want to, I didn't mention this on any of the other chats, but I also have a YouTube channel. Um, I do a lot of my own remixes, and I also have lots of rare videos and unreleased songs and things like that. It's very amateurish. It's more for my fun than anything else. But if anyone's interested, you can find me on YouTube at Mr. David, um, MrDavid. Uh, and then and I don't just do Culture Club. I have lots of artists that influenced me and made me into who I am today, the music fan that I am today. So, I'm not saying none of my channel's monetized. I'm not getting anything out of this, just other than my own amusement. But if you're looking for something to listen to, you might find something good.
So there's lots to check out, and until the next chat, enjoy what we're up to.
There's a lot to do, lots and lots to do. So we
Yeah.
will see you all soon.
See you soon.
All right, bye bye.